Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. I'm Jess, and I'm here today with Chief Parlier. He's with the Rose Hill Police Department and served 19 years in law enforcement, a former U.S. Marine Infantry Squad leader, and currently pursuing his master's in counseling. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, before we talk about wellness and leadership, let's start at the beginning. What led you into the military and then eventually into law enforcement?
And the military was kind of a family business. It was never really forced on us. It was never really discussed. It was just always an ever-present thing in the background. And I think if I really started to think about it, I just helping people feel safe and helping people feel like that they have control over their lives, and that things are as fair and as safe as we can make them was always a driving force for me. After I got out of the military, I kind of wandered around a little bit, got a degree, and uh, I realized that I needed to get back into service and I wanted to be able to help people and to really give that sense of safety to people as best I could.
Yeah, I can relate. You mentioned it was sort of a family business. I have an uncle who was a Marine. My cousin followed in his footsteps, and my uncle, who was a Marine, became a police officer after that. But I found that it's hard sometimes. Sometimes it's really hard after going into the military to figure out what your next steps are going to be. How,
Oh,
yeah, if you want to go into
yeah,
that a little bit, I think that would be
absolutely.
interesting.
There's a lot of conflict. So much of the Marine Corps, I love it. I definitely understand that there is a almost like a cult-like event in joining the Marine Corps specifically. So much of your life is controlled and for good reason. But they can definitely affect a young mind. So it becomes difficult to sometimes get back into the civilian life or back into the world, and know which way is the best way to go, what pieces of the tools that they gave you over those years are important to hang on to, and how best to maybe reevaluate them and place them in a new perspective for your current life. So it was difficult. I wandered around. I was trying to find my new piece of self. I think I had kind of a monolithic view of who I was, just the one pillar, so to speak. So when that was gone by my own choice, it was difficult for me to know where I was, who I was, and where I needed to go.
So how did you do it? How did you find your way? Maybe there wasn't one thing, but a few
It
things
was a
that led
lot.
to.
It was several things. It was unfortunately some maladaptive coping mechanisms. I was working through some of my own traumas and some of my own issues poorly. Some of it was luck. A lot of it was friends and family. And then it was, I think, time more than anything else. It was just the ability to decompress after I got out, and then to just reevaluate where I was at. And having those strong social networks and family networks that I had at the time were able to provide me an anchor long enough to be able to get my feet underneath me and know where I wanted to go.
So important to have that family and support. Did you find that support outside of military department was more important to have a balance between the two, to have someone to talk to?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's been a driving force of my life in the last couple of years is trying to find that balance, is understanding that everything that I did in the Marine Corps, my time there, my friends, my family that I established, the lessons that I learned are also very, very important, but they aren't the only thing on the scale. Now I have to put other things on the scale and weigh it out and even it out. And a lot of that is the lessons that I learn now in civilian life, in law enforcement, and developing those healthy and those proper coping mechanisms that are so needed. So yeah, the balance I think is the biggest thing for me.
Definitely. Is there an experience or a moment that sticks with you today that was like early in your career that led you to know that you were on the right path?
In about 2010, I was switching from days to nights. It was cold. It was in the winter time, and I was getting ready to go off shift. The day was a little bit strange. NCIC, the files were down, state files were down, national files were down. It's a very common occurrence. And the calls were just odd. Then in a neighboring community, there was a homicide that got called out, and some suspects were on the run. Didn't know if they were still in the area or not. And then near the end of my shift, get a call for a vehicle that was on the side of the road. Showed up and it was had just been extinguished from being on fire. And through some weird luck and divine intervention, maybe, I don't know. While we were working that, I was getting ready to leave. There was fire trucks, cop cars, everything out there. We were processing it, and then the suspects from the homicide just drove right past. They were the ones that had burnt out that car, and they were coming just to check on it on their way out of town.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, and then we get into a pursuit. It lasted probably about 20, 30 minutes, went about 100 miles an hour on dirt roads. And then we finally catch the individuals. And I spent the next year or so just thinking about all of the different things that had to go correctly or incorrectly to lead to that one moment where these knuckleheads drove past, these murderers drove past the people that were looking for them. And had they gone down any other road in this county, the size of Rhode Island, they would have gotten away and they would have had another day or two of freedom. But I think it was the randomness of it all, those seconds and inches, and understanding that sometimes sitting still is as important as moving, and just being there and being available. So, what I really started thinking about was preparing myself for those moments and then just being open to the luck that it takes to be able to get there. And then catching those people definitely refilled my cup in a very strong way to be able to keep going. So that was a big one.
I love that you said that sitting still is sometimes what it takes.
Absolutely.
The movement, and we need to do that more often. We need to sit still and be with our thoughts and let things happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So with that, like how you're with a smaller agency, how have you built trust and culture with limited resources?
So I think one of the things that we do very well here, and largely in Kansas and probably across the country, is in these smaller agencies and rural agencies, we have to really pitch in. So, as the chief, I still take calls, I still develop cases, and I still go out and make myself available. If somebody is sick, I'll work a shift for them. So, we definitely want to empower our troops and our staff members to realize that they're capable of doing pretty much anything. There's maybe only one or two types of cases that a new officer can't work yet because they don't have the skill set. But pretty much anything else, aggravated batteries, some sexual assaults, burglary rings, things of that nature, drug cases. You could be in training and we'll help you through it. So you get a much more holistic view of what law enforcement looks like. Instead of as in a larger agency, things are more siloed off. So you'll have property crimes, persons crimes, financial crimes. In smaller agencies, we really have to empower each other to be able to see each individual case all the way through. And I think that by doing that, we really show the investment that we're wanting to put into people and the trust that we have in them. And then that helps defeat some of the moral injuries that we're inevitably going to feel through the course of our career, realizing that we do have a voice and we do matter.
Now, most police officers don't pursue a counseling degree, but you're doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
What led to that decision?
Again, it was a lot of the maladaptive coping mechanisms that I had in the beginning. I put myself more at risk than I needed to be, probably drank more than I needed to drink, things of that nature. I was able to get through that, I believe. And then I started looking around and seeing how many of those behaviors are almost aimed for by people in our career field. Drinking is just something that you do. If you have a bad day, you have a drink. If you have a good day, you have a drink. If somebody gets hired, you have a drink, promoted, and so on. And it's almost preferred if somebody just runs in headlong into a house, not taking the time because they're just brave and courageous. But those are all maladaptive coping mechanisms. Those are all things that we do to try and silence the voices in our head and to try and not pay attention and be still with those thoughts as we were talking about. So I think the more that I looked at that, the more I tried to really understand about how to normalize these discussions with people and how to show them that by having these conversations with, say, a counselor or with a peer support network, it's not jeopardizing your career. In fact, quite the opposite. It's strengthening your career and it's making you more viable in the long term. So I think when I consider how I got into this, it was wanting to lead from the front, so to speak, as the Marine Corps taught me, and show them that if the chief can go to counseling and not only go to counseling, but become a counselor, then it is something that we can support and it is not a detriment to your career.
Your team is very lucky to have someone like you who's pursuing that and that they can come to when they need that support. What other resources do you have for your team?
Being a small agency, we have to get creative.
Mhm.
We've looked into getting involved in peer support groups throughout the region, throughout our area municipalities and state and local agencies. We started an EAP, which the city did not have for the longest time. And it's a slow start. All these things, they take time for people to trust them and realizing that they're not putting themselves into a trap. But the EAP that we have also focuses on family. So if you have a family member that's in crisis, it's not just for you, it's for that family member as well, for counseling, financial counseling, mental health, anything of that nature. We also really try to strive to create those relationships with our neighboring agencies so that things that we can't provide, like being on a task force, being on a tactical team, being in a group of investigators to get more exposure, we've really tried to increase those MOUs so that the staff members that we have can show that we're investing in them and that we want them to have such a good resume that they can go wherever they want, but they just choose to stay where they're at.
Mhm. I guess that brings me to another point of retention. Like, how are you retaining your people?
Through duct tape and baling wire sometimes. It's tough. I think that like the question you asked about making sure that everybody, how we supported them, and I think that's the best way to keep it. I mean, retention is the new recruitment. So we are definitely trying to show everybody that the quality of life here is at such a level that the things that we can't provide or aren't as strong on as other areas, that quality of life and that work-life balance is about as strong as we can make it. So there are other large agencies nearby in the metro area that pay significantly more than we do, but they have significantly higher turnover and burnout rates than we do. So we try and lean into those areas where we can, creating those healthy life balances, creating those social interactions with the community that are stronger than maybe some of the larger metro areas. And that's really the angle that we're taking.
Are you able to give some examples of what work-life balance means to you?
Yeah,
How
for
that means
instance,
it?
yeah, we absolutely, again, like with the counseling, we always try to push that if it's something that they want. But if, say, an officer is a little league coach, and there's a team going on while they're on shift, if at all possible, we can work a shift or cover them while they're doing that in that social interaction. We absolutely like them to be able to get, if they have family or children that are in school, get them to PTA meetings, get them to band concerts for their kids. So we really want to show them that they can't always choose their family first necessarily. Sometimes the job does have to come first because that's what we signed up for. But when we can make small exceptions to allow a person to see their family and to experience those things, that's what we do. On Christmas, things like that, we allow the officers to kind of take calls from their house, do very light patrolling in the area so they can spend those times and create those memories as well.
Great. That's great. So, are you open and able to share? We know there was an incident, we talked about this a little bit offline, that happened with a young child. Are you able to share the impact of how that's happened? Like how that affected you and in your team?
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a place that you'd like to start, I can absolutely. It's a kind of a jumbled mess in my head sometimes. So if there's I guess being a smaller agency, it was a detective and I that spent most of the time on the case. And for about 6 months, 10 hours a day, sometimes into the weekends, we were working the case. And it was, almost 2,000 hours that we had to put into it. And in that time, you have to really get into the mind of the person that did it. The vast majority of our case, since it had occurred 4 years earlier, was a digital case, going through all of the communications that the suspect had and all of the ways that she had communicated and tormented and tortured the other children in the house. Um, and it leaves you feeling, for lack of a better term, very impotent. It leaves you feeling like the thing that you wanted to do the most is help people and protect children and keep everybody safe. This happened blocks away from the office. This was a person that was known to the community, the suspect. Um, and it left us feeling very hollow and very um, weak, very ineffective. So those are things that we really had to grapple with and to try and understand, and we still are. The wounds are probably going to be there forever, just maybe a little bit less. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to grapple with when you pull a 6-year-old girl out of the ground in a trash bag. Um, and I think that was also one of the big things. I started my journey to become a counselor after that case um, because I almost didn't continue my career afterwards.
Thank you. I mean, these are really tough conversations to have. However, I think they are important for us to have because in your field of work, this is what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And maybe not that extreme of a tragedy, but it is something that happens in your line of work and it needs to be
Absolutely.
talked
And
about.
I think one thing that this case really illuminated for me was that cumulative trauma, the individual cuts over and over and over and over again, and how they pile up on one another. You know, there's only so many times that you can see a kid crying on the side of the road because their dog got hit, and you've maybe got to put the dog down, or to go into a suicide, or to have a suicide occur in front of you, or to have just a family argument where the family is living in despair and there's nothing that can be done about it. There's no social network that can take care of it. There's no legal way to move through it necessarily, apart from maybe stripping the family apart, which isn't a good choice. Sometimes it's the best choice that we have out of the lousy options that are available. Um, but I think that this case really illuminated to me how much those cumulative traumas and those moral injuries can really affect us over time. And then those maladaptive behaviors that we have in law enforcement of drinking, of finding that community in alcohol, um, they really can build up almost to a breaking point. And sometimes they are to a breaking point.
And at the end of the day, you're human. You're human just like everybody else. But you're the front of the line. You're dealing with this to protect the community and keep the community safe from this sort of thing. And where do you draw the line? Where is the boundary for you? You know, you don't want to bring this stuff home and then share with families and friends. You're trying to hold it all in, and that's why we're here. That's what we're talking about, is to figure out how to cope with this sort of thing and how you
Absolutely.
handled it. Mm-hmm.
And it's day by day. Behind me over my shoulder is a doll. It's not a replication. It's not a direct replica of the young girl, but it's the same size as the girl. And the box is the size of the box that had killed her. So for me, it's a reminder of what the cost is every time I come in. And it kind of, I don't want to say it desensitizes me, but it's a reminder that it's okay, that I didn't kill her, that the fact that I couldn't protect her wasn't a fault of mine. But it's just the way life goes sometimes. The universe is unfair. So I think for me, it's having the conversations is the way to get through it. And it's a way to keep the functioning ability up and to keep showing back up again. The more we try and push stuff down and pretend that it didn't happen or that we're too strong or that this isn't Chicago PD and it's not that bad here, I think it's a disservice to ourselves and to our communities. That's why I think this conversation, and thank you again very much for inviting me in, is just so very important because we just need to normalize the discussion and normalize the fact that we are human and we have no idea when that one breaking point is going to occur, when that one thing is that's going to break us down. And it could be something so small as somebody runs a stop sign in front of us, and then all of a sudden that's the thing that does it. And the more that we have these conversations, the more that we can take the magic out of it, and the more we can limit those breaking events, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just and it's one step at a time too, taking it as you go. And again, then coming back to stillness. I love that you said that. Just find it, like coming back to that stillness moment and letting yourself process it. I think again, a lot of times you turn to some of these other outlets and you're not allowing yourself to process it. And it's okay. You don't have to. And there's affirmations, that are thrown out there all the time. Like, this is happening to me for a reason. Like, let that go. Let that
Yes.
go and be with where you're at in the moment. You don't have to be positive all of the time. I think finding that will allow you to process it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think people coming back from war or anybody suffering through a traumatic event in this line of work, EMS, fire, police, I think that you just have to exist in that moment and realize it occurred. It doesn't define you, it doesn't define anybody, but it did occur. And like you said, just go through it. If you cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. But whatever it is, just accept that it occurred and just try and process it. But the more we try and stifle it and push it down, the harder it becomes to ever move through it.
It's just going to build. It will build and build and build until you break. You
Absolutely.
don't address it, it's just going to get worse.
Somebody once told me that trauma is patient. It
Yes.
will be waiting for you in the dark. It'll be waiting for you in the basement. It'll be waiting for you in the car.
That gave me chills. Yeah, trauma is patient. It's truth. Well, I appreciate you being here today. I do want to end with our final, um, what words of wisdom do you have for the younger generations?
I think kind of to go back with the balance comment that we had is make sure that you have an identity that's larger than your profession. Sooner or later, this job will leave. Sooner or later, you will leave this job or it will be taken from you. And you have to have a greater sense of who you are than just being a cop or just being a first responder. You have to develop other things with hobbies. You have to develop those relationships with your friends and family outside of the profession, and consider it like a stool. If one leg of the stool is broken out, you still have other legs that can hold it up. But if the only leg that you have is I'm a law enforcement officer, um, that's not going to lead to a healthy life once you emerge out of the other side of this. I had an instructor in the academy tell me a long time ago that no matter how much you love this job will never love you. And that's always been something that I've tried to remember, that I'll give everything that I have for as long as I can. But I have to remember that there has to be enough left in the gas tank when I get done to be able to live my life and to play catch with my boys and to walk the dog or to just sit out in a field someplace and just exist. So I think finding that balance and more definitions of self would be the best things that I could give to another person that are coming up. Don't give too much of yourself.
Great. We appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here. And
Thank
thank
you,
you
man.
for your service and all you do.
Thank you for being with it.